You've spent too much time up here, David. Your atrophy's accelerated, and you're close to your radiation limit. You noticed any, glowing in the dark?
I like it up here. When I was in the military, we'd go to Syria, we'd set up a hospital, treat all the casualties, and then come back a week or two later, and then the whole village would just be bombed out.
Then Earth isn't all Syria, though, is it?
Can't stand what we do to each other down there.
Don't you miss anything? Don't you miss fresh water or birds or the trees?
And that's a clip from Life. I'm delighted to say that one of its stars, Jake Gyllenhaal, is with us. We've just been exchanging hydration tips and the lozenges that you have to have when you're acting.
Singing more than acting, but yes, occasionally acting as well.
Oh, is that right? Okay. So, and if you're on stage, as you've just been, and presumably that's one of the things that you have to look after particularly. And can you actually sing with one of these in your mouth?
You can, yeah. If you put a vocal zone or another sort of small lozenge up in the upper regions of your cheek area. And that's also a secret for movie bruising as well.
Is that right?
You take those dentist cotton little pieces and you stick as many as you can up there, and they just sort of puff up your.
Is that right? This is like an acting masterclass.
It is. It's absolutely. This is literally the only thing that I can do as an actor. I have no craft. Just
thanks for passing the tip on.
Things to stick up into your upper cheek region.
So tell us about Dr. David Jordan. And where he fits into this story, and we're in space, but anyway, tell us.
Yes, this story, the movie is about the International Space Station, a group of scientists and some doctors up there doing what they are actually doing up there, which is many different experiments, and then one of those being the looking for potential life in different planets. And they send a rover to Mars, and they bring the rover back, and surely enough, they discover that there's a cellular being they found on Mars, and they start to poke and prod at and experiment on it. Yeah. And just like I think any of us would if we were brought from our planet to some strange ship in the middle of space and started getting poked and prodded, it starts to get a little upset. And then
that's one way of putting it.
Yes, and then that escalates.
That's one way of putting it. So this cellular being, I mean, you do know that when this cellular being is being warmed up and poked and prodded and electrocuted, you know that everybody in the cinema is going, no, we've seen how this is. This is, in general, with all our knowledge of space and aliens, if you prod and poke them and put an electric current through them, this is not going to end well.
It's interesting, isn't it? But I feel like it's not only in movies or in behavior with strange creatures. Generally in the world, we continue to do things like that we don't seem to learn from. So I guess that lesson just needs to be told to us over and over again.
Is that what the film's about?
No, I mean,
it's not.
I think it is really wonderful, fun, general entertainment. I personally wanted to do the film to have fun. It is a terrifying movie. So maybe that says something about me, but really, generally, the process of it to make a fun, entertaining film that is thrilling in a particular way is not something I've done with my work in the same way for a while now. And so I consider it a bit of a respite and just a sort of journey into the idea of fun.
That's interesting because the film is many things.
Yes.
And it is enormously entertaining, and it is incredibly tense.
Yeah.
And it is brutal and all those things.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's fun. So I'm guessing that it's a whole lot of fun to be in. I mean, is it
Yes.
true that, the scarier and tenser the film that you're making, the more fun it is once the camera stops rolling?
Well, there are a lot of wonderful aspects to making the movie. I mean, we were shooting on this beautiful set on one stage, which normally, when you film a movie, you're moving all over the place. I don't make movies generally that are of a certain size most of the time. And, we're on wires. We do a lot of wire work pretty much the entire time because the whole movie is in zero gravity. So we are floating through the whole film. There's no false gravity in space on a spaceship like you normally see. So there's a lot of physicality to it. And I have to say, I've always had a dream of flying, as I think a majority of us have. And we got to do that every day on set. So in terms of fun, I think I also using my imagination in a different way than I had in a long time. I didn't know what the creature looked like. I was picturing it. And yes, there was an element of fear when we were acting, but It was lovely to be able to use my imagination. I've been playing roles in reality in a certain way where sometimes I've lost that sense of imagination when I've devoted myself to trying to get into a character. And I think acting is half imagination. So when I say that, really, yeah, it's more about my process of enjoying myself more while I work.
As you were alluding to, I think famous for your meticulous preparation. So when you're in Southpaw, you're 6 months in the gym. When you're End of Watch, you're 5 months with LAPD. When you're in a movie on the International Space Station, what do you do? How do you translate that? What do you talk to astronauts? Do you practice with the chains and the weights? Do you practice in zero G? What kind of preparation can you do?
Well, there was preparation, but no, not in the same way. I think I'm searching, I have not devise some plan for what I believe is the perfect equation for acting. I believe that it is a continuous search and it requires great craft, and you pick up things that I think you will do in perpetuity, but there are other things you throw away. But I am searching. So, sometimes in certain roles or certain times in my life, I felt like, I needed to learn how to box in order to play a boxer. I wanted to feel that. Even if you never saw a boxing scene in a movie, I wanted to bring that energy with me into a scene. And what people tend to focus on generally is how you look after you've learned how to box, which is in very good shape. But I think for me, the best part about it was learning a skill. And in the case of this movie, psychologically for me, I think I had lost a sort of sense of imagination and fun in my process. And I thought, oh, wow, there's a part of me that could just deeply have joy, even if the storyline is dark, as it is in this movie, have real joy in the process in a different way. So in terms of my work as an actor, generally, that's what I wanted to explore with this one.
And you got the joy that you were looking for?
Yes, and no. I think sometimes, I was working with Daniel Espinosa, our director, is a lovely, lovely man, and very in touch with the sort of darker sides of himself and of humanity. And so he's not afraid of that. And I don't think having fun or experiencing joy means dismissing a sense of darkness. I also don't feel like it's about indulging it either. But I do think that I had great fun. I've never laughed so much on a set before. I've never taken myself so seriously.
Why is that? Is it because you've got Ryan Reynolds there, or is it just because of the drama of the piece?
I think it's a number of things. I think that I take my work very seriously. If I'm in a scene that's supposed to be in a particular context, I consider that space in front of a camera or on a stage to be genuinely sacred. And the reason why is because when you commit to something, I think that the audience really does feel that, and you feel it too, and it is your life's, it is happened to be at this point my life's work. So I take that very seriously. But I think also there's a real quality of humor sometimes to everything in what we do, in the business I'm in. There's also a piece that you really can't take seriously, that is absurd, and that is pretend. Ang Lee, who I worked with, said one time I gave him an award, one of the hundreds that he has, and he said, we pretend so we can get closer to the truth. I think for a little while I was maybe trying to be almost fully truthful, or thought that was a way in order to get closer to the truth. And in truth, I think that imaginative and sort of pretend side of the process actually does help you get closer to the truth.
Some listeners' questions. Martin Wood says, did you actually understand the plot of Donnie Darko before agreeing to star in it?
Inherently, somewhere deep within my being, I did. Not necessarily logically, but something made total sense to me, which was the journey of what is adolescence, I think, into adulthood, where the world becomes trippy and boundaries become unclear and hormones start to affect you in a particular way. And I think that's what the movie was about to me, was that movement from adolescence into the idea of the beginning of adulthood.
Nick Garside's question, what do you think Lou Bloom is up to today, 3 years on from the end of Nightcrawler?
I don't know, potentially working in the current administration in America, most likely. I think he'd probably be doing a fantastic job there and rising up the ranks very quickly. And I would commend him for that, as he says, in the movie, he wants to be the guy who owns the camera, who owns the station, and he'll get there any way he can.
We could see him again then.
You may be seeing him almost every day, or hearing from him in one way or another. Lou Bloom is he's ethereal, and he shows himself in all of us at times.
I think in the movies he'd be called a piece of work.
Yeah, one of many phrases you can use for him. Yes.
Hugo Burns' question. This could take the rest of our time, probably will. Which characters?
You notice I like to talk, so forget
Which characters that you've played have influenced you as a person for better or worse?
that I've played.
Yes.
Oh,
I guess what's most is the characters that have stayed with you. You know, when you go home after work, you shut the door. It's still there. Maybe a couple of months after you've finished playing the role.
yeah. I mean, I would say someone like Lou Bloom was a physical and emotional, mental commitment. The energy in the screenplay was already there, and then you sort of pick it up, and it sort of consumes you. And that took a long while to shake off. Not only physically, because I had lost weight for the role, and there was a lot of process in that just to get back to my normal state, but also just because of the sort of depth material and the darkness that it went into. And just on a physical sense, a number of those characters that I played where I've learned a skill or changed my body somehow, or it has changed my body somehow, that's taken some time. But for the good, people like to talk a lot about how the darkness of characters affect actors when they play them, if they've committed to them. I mean, I'll tell you, the character I'm playing now on stage, which is a combination of George Seurat and then his great-grandson, is with me right now, even as I'm in this. This show has opened my heart in a way that I'm not used to, honestly. And
can you explain a bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's a show, it's more aptly said by the author, which is that, there's only two things that we leave behind in this world: children and art. And it's about the art of making art, the show. And that art is not just the physical art, but also the art of making, children. And so I think that idea, creation generally, which is so interconnected and so messy, as making a child is, is just moving to be around and to sing, not only musically, but also to sing lyrically every night. And it opens you up.
Yeah. Does that make it odd to come over to the UK to promote a movie which is in space, to take you out of that role, which sounds like such an important role for you, such a sort of a mind-expanding role, and here you are talking about bugs and aliens and spaceships and...
No,
is that odd?
It is, yeah.
Are you desperate to get back?
I am, but it is the oddness of my job. I mean, I have committed and accepted the oddity of this ride. It is a blessing, and it is my gosh, is it wonderfully lucrative in so many ways. But you discover in different ways. I think music opens you up. It is a musical that I'm doing. It is inevitable. Other things show you other things. And for instance, I got one of the closest friendships I've had in a very long time in Ryan Reynolds when we made this movie, and with Daniel Espinosa, the director, who I will work with again, definitely. And those are other things that I think have opened me up and changed my life. So, it's everywhere if you look.
Jake Gyllenhaal, a privilege to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.